be perfect. Oh my God.
Andre, you and I will be having a very different type of conversation.
I'll be ducking out. My car's parked very close to the entrance.
Can I ask you guys a quick favor? Run and get Penny, please. Tell Penny to come, please. Oh, is it? Okay, it's fine. No, she's coming. This is just too close for comfort. Like usually usually, especially him. Like, he doesn't even work for us anymore.
It's perfect. If he just does that, it's on the shim. So it's perfect.
But I mean, usually that first row starts like there, and I've got room to move. Whereas here,
Not today.
you guys are welcome to the couches. That's why we got them there. It's up to you.
Oh, look at that.
Those are the VIPs.
Just to that face. And I know people say I have the same face, but I don't want to look at that face.
Albert, ask him, why does it look like he's glowing? He's got that proud feeling.
Sorry, I've got OCD, so I'm going to wait for it to hit exactly 10 o'clock, and then we're going to start. Of course, I did see. Okay, 10 o'clock. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the official launch of the EasyRoster mobile app. It feels like we have you guys in this auditorium every few months. We're introducing the cloud version, then it's the mobile app, but I think that tells you that we're in a really good position. With the release of our cloud version, we're capable of doing a lot more. And this is something that's really, really exciting to us as a business. I'll be very honest with you, we as a leadership team, we got together probably middle to end of last year and we said, what do we think we need to have on our roadmap in the next 3 to 5 years? The mobile app was in that 3 to 5 year plan. We then changed one individual's role at the end of last year and created a new position called Head of Customer Experience. And what Lindri is the person that's doing that now, and I'll introduce you to Lindri shortly. But Lindri started face-to-face engagements with customers in October. I think she's completed 128 since then. 184. I was close. There's just swap the 8 and the 2, same thing. But there's one big reason as to why we decided to push the mobile app forward in our roadmap. And the answer is you. You asked for it. So a big thing for EasyRoster and going forward, we need to understand what our customers' pain points are, and as a result, see what we can do to help them. The mobile app for us is point number 1. Okay, so before I get into the presentation, I'd just like to introduce the team. I know some of you might not know everyone, and I think it's important to put a face to a name. So first of all, Lindri Meerding, she's Head of Customer Experience. Lindri, if you can be upstanding, please. I know you're pretending to send emails. Your out of office is on. Neville Donnelly. Letlogonolo Kutwane. I have to do this. Recently retired, very happily so. Albert Brits, for those of you that have spoken to Albert in the past, that is Albert Brits, one of the original founders of EasyRoster. Sarah Oberholzer. Penelope Orange. And just by show of hands, who was at our user conference last year? You might recognize this face. He did a presentation for Instacom. He's now Andre Ellis, our Senior Business Development Manager. Ntokozo Kumalo, upstanding, please. Ntokozo is our Human Capital Management Business Partner. Sandra Tkele at the back, that's the real boss. That's Finance Manager. So when I'm allowed to spend money, I've got to speak to Sandra. But guys, this is half of the team that have put this together. We've got Regan Govender, our development manager, and his team. That they obviously aren't customer facing, but they've been helping with the development of this. And I'm going to keep on saying it again and again today. It's a really exciting time for EasyRoster as a business. Okay, let's jump into the mobile app. So when we look at the mobile app, there's a whole bunch of different things. Now, for us, we had spoken to our customers, and they had said to us that they really need time and attendance. All right? Time and attendance was something that they can get to the closest form of bulletproof attendance. Whether it's fingerprint, whether it's a mobile app, whether it's cards, tags, you name it, they needed something like that. But what we also heard was that their employees not necessarily struggle, but the internal processes within your organizations tend to be a bit of a pain. Pay queries, a lot of paperwork, all of that kind of stuff. So again, the mobile app for us was a no-brainer. How can we connect the employees to the organization? They now have the ability to access anything that they want on their phone. So we'll dive into it. I'll just briefly touch on the fact that it's not only time and attendance where they're going to be able to clock in and clock out. There's employee self-service. They can apply for leave. They can submit pay queries. All of that kind of stuff is part of the long-term roadmap. The initial first, sorry, I've just pressed the button. The initial first release will just obviously be time and attendance, employee self-service, and we'll discuss a roadmap with you guys later on today. Let's compare the EasyRoster mobile app to a third-party device supplier. I'm not sure who's heard of EasyRoster Deployment Manager. So EasyRoster Deployment Manager is something that must be 15 years old, Albert? Okay, so we developed EasyRoster Deployment Manager, and that was going to be our interface, or it was integration using clocking technologies. So we would get third-party suppliers to submit clocks to us, and then we'd process the attendance for you. So attendance would be done automatically. We've now looked at it going, okay, what are the pros and cons? So if we look at the EasyRoster mobile app on the left-hand side and the third-party supply on the right-hand side, there's no integration maintenance required on the mobile app. It's plug in and play. If you had to go to a third-party supplier, there would need to be integration, there'd need to be implementation, we'd need to ensure they're sending us clocks. Bit of a pain point. The EasyRoster mobile app is easy to deploy. As we've said, you've got the existing sites in EasyRoster, you've got the personnel. We just link the personnel to the mobile app, and then they can send clocks, they can apply for leave, and we'll touch on the supervisor app a little bit later. Whereas a third-party device, it's quite intensive when it comes to a deployment. Cost-effective when scaling up. Now, I'd love to, I want to see if anyone would be willing to discuss this later, whoever's using a third-party supplier. But when we did an exercise, we looked at an example where a company has 500 guards. And we said, as an example, they'd have 60 sites. They don't need a biometric device on all 60 sites. We're going to say they only need a biometric device on 40 sites. What would that cost? If you're looking at the devices, SIM cards, locking software, what have I missed? There's one more thing.
SIM cards.
Yeah, data, whatever it might be. The exercise that we did, the cost to your company would be approximately 28,700 Rand a month. Okay, I'm going to show you our pricing a bit later. It's 500% cheaper than that. All right, so just pricing's always a sore point, and I know we're going to get to that, but we can speak to why we see it as affordable. It's going to make your operations a lot more effective. It's going to create accountability and a lot more connecting workers. We spoke about this earlier, but it's also giving the guard the ability to have something that they can access, that they can submit those queries, they can contact, they can apply for shifts, they can clock in. They aren't reliant on a supervisor who drives around every 3-4 hours. They're filling in on a piece of paper. Then they've got a pay query because that posting sheet never went back to the office. There are a lot of headaches that we're trying to avoid here. Disconnected workers with a third-party supplier, they're using a fingerprint. It's not really connected. Fingerprint or a card. It's just clock in, clock out. One relationship to manage. Now, us as an EasyRoster team, we're very selfish. And we did discuss this at the user conference last year. We have really good relationships with some of our suppliers, but our end goal is to have an all-in-one solution. And I don't feel that there's anything stopping us. Currently, you're paying 3 or 4 licenses for EasyRoster and a third-party supplier and payroll and this and that. And ultimately, our end goal and part of our long-term roadmap, we want all of it. And that way, you've got one relationship to manage. So with the mobile app and the time and attendance and the employee self-service, you've already got one relationship to manage. But we're saying going forward, we want you to have one relationship to manage for everything. Okay. Deployment manager cost included. For the Windows users that are using EasyRoster Deployment Manager, the use of EasyRoster Deployment Manager adds 50% to the existing license fee. You know very well that that's what it does. Deployment Manager, the cost of that is included in the cloud version. So it's important to mention, the mobile app is only available to cloud version users. So, get migrating. There's point number one. Don't join the queue when it comes to that. Francina?
No,
But no,
that's
please.
fine. No, after.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Yeah. No, we've got the paperwork. We're hoping this is like a 5-minute conference. We're just going to send out registration forms. Okay, the biggest thing for us, and it's, again, speaking to our customers, we found out what their pain points were. The EasyRoster mobile app works in offline mode. What that means is, if someone doesn't have data or they don't have signal, the EasyRoster mobile app will work. So at no stage are they able to say, I wasn't able to clock in. All right? Third-party suppliers don't have an offline mode. Okay, so again, creating accountability. God, you have the EasyRoster mobile app on your phone. Whether you have data, whether you have signal, it should work. You clock in. As soon as you enter a Wi-Fi area or you get signal, that clock will then be submitted. Make sense? Okay, now introducing you to the actual application. Let's go in there. Okay, so just to show you how it works, and the first screen is really important. You're going to either be listed as an employee or a supervisor. An employee will have access to his clocking in and clocking out, his leave applications, and his pay queries. A supervisor has quite a bit more, and we'll dive into this a bit later, but a supervisor will have a list of all his sites to view current postings. So if he wants to look at his site at 7 o'clock in the morning, knowing his shift started an hour ago, he has a real-time view in that. Again, accountability. Supervisor, you could see that site was short. Why have you not allocated someone? Or why were you overposting? You have a view of that. Supervisor can also clock in people. So someone forgot, they might try and say, caught you, I forgot my phone at home, I can't clock in. Supervisor, he can clock you in. Okay? And there's a bit more that we'll touch on a bit later, but the registration process is really easy. Their cell phone number that's linked to their personnel page in EasyRoster will get captured. They'll add their personnel number, and they'll get SMS the validation code. Once they get that validation code, they'll put it in, and that's what page 1 looks like. So that's their first view that they see. It automatically picks up the shift that they rostered for on that given day. So there you can see it says today's shift. They've got, no, one back. Oh, okay, sorry, it's the same thing. Yeah, sorry, carry on, Andre. So what it also picks up is their roster. So they can go down and see which shifts they rostered for. No excuse to say, I didn't know when I was working where, what time, what site, what shift. It's all there. Okay? They will not be able to clock in for other shifts. They can only clock in for shifts on that calendar date. And we're trying to change the behavior. So it's not just a check-in, check-out. We want them to take a photo. So step 1, take a photo. Only once they've taken a photo will the check-in functionality appear. Next most important part to mention, the check-in is geofenced. Okay, so at a site level, when you create a site in EasyRoster, on the cloud version, what you will see is that there's now the ability to, on a Google map, ring fence a site. They can only clock in when they are in that geofenced area. If they try to submit a clock outside of that area, a message will appear and tell them they're not allowed to, that they're out of that geofenced area. I haven't heard any clapping and screaming and... Okay, now we want that every 2 minutes. Okay, so again, it's changing behaviors, guys. It's things with posting sheets and all of that kind of stuff. They've worked great for the last 28 years, but it's time for change. Albert, when did I start? 16 years ago. Lindri, 17 years ago. We always got told, and I did the same for Andre 4 months ago, when you do a demo, The first thing you say is EasyRoster is an operational management tool that helps managers to ensure that they roster and post the correct number of people of the correct grade or rank to the correct site, that you limit overtime, that you limit non-productive time, essentially helping you to ensure that you make a profit on every single site. On the Windows version, and this is me just being honest, it's not entirely possible. Ops managers are out in the field. They're not the ones driving to the office to go capture on EasyRoster. Typically, people have EasyRoster administrators or data capturers. There's no communication between the ops manager and the data capturer, and as a result, it's not as efficient as it should be. With the cloud version and with the mobile app, you can access it from anywhere. Again, you're now making it an operational management tool that helps managers to that whole thing. It's now possible. Create accountability at a high level. Okay. What we have added, for any of those that have retail sites in particular, we have added the ability to clock in and out of breaks. So on ERDM currently, you've got one check-in, one check-out. If there is a need for a break, that is something that's going to be added to the mobile app. The mobile app will be released in the coming weeks, so just know that this is us preparing you for the release of the mobile app, and we're saying to you, again, it's only available to customers that use the cloud version. So if you are interested, please migrate to cloud.
How would the break interpret into EasyRoster?
Okay, so the question is, how would the break interpret into EasyRoster? So that's going to be built in under hours and times, where you can allocate a break slot to those hours and times. And when I'll show you when we get to the checking in, checking out, there's a little button there that's check in, check out for break. Okay. Just sorry, guys, please, if there are any questions, Lindri does have a mic. We please need to ask the question over the mic just for everyone on the live stream. Okay, so there we can see we've checked out of our break. We had previously checked in, and there's the functionality, start break or check out. Okay, Andre, move on, please. All right, let's talk about employee self-service. That's what it looks like. So I just want to point you here to the employee app. This is what the employee app looks like. They can view their shifts, which is the previous screen that you saw. They can look at attendance, they can look at their timesheet, they can submit a pay query, and they can apply for leave. So once they apply for leave, it automatically picks up their personnel number and the days available. Okay? They can select the leave type that they'd like to apply for, they can submit the dates, and they can send it through. That does not go to a supervisor. Buddy system. My brother-in-law gets all the leave. Not going to happen. Okay? That gets sent to an EasyRoster administrator, that the actual user of EasyRoster using the web application, they can then approve or decline that leave request. Okay. A pay query. Okay, so again, looking at the menu at the bottom, we're going to submit a pay query. I can then, it automatically picks up my personnel number. I can select the shift that I'd like to, so the shift date that I'd like to query, where it was, as in what site was it at, and I can say I worked 9.5 hours on the shift, not 9 hours that have been paid. Again, not to the supervisor, to the EasyRoster administrator. If you guys think about your pay queries, from what we've heard, I don't know if Lindri's given us false information based on the conversations she's had with you, but the pay query day is hell on earth for some of our customers. You have a whole herd of people coming to the office. It requires a lot of paperwork and a lot of time. And more often than not, as far as we're aware, the pay query isn't in fact valid. So, you know, it's more a time issue than anything else. Okay. Push notifications. So every single person on their mobile app in the top right-hand corner, you might see a siren. It will show you the notifications. It can give you a shift start warning. It can tell you that your pay query was submitted. It can tell you whether it was accepted or rejected. Again, connecting the worker. Also, avoiding having a whole herd of people come to your office each and every single month. Make sense? Okay. It's going a lot quicker than I thought. But there's a lot less clapping than what I thought. I thought the clapping, we factored in like 45 minutes of clapping. Okay, supervisor mobile application. So that was the employee side of things. This is a supervisor. So when they log in, they'll log in as a supervisor. Now this is the big thing. This site summary shows them the sites that are allocated to them. Everyone's familiar with the colors in EasyRoster. Red, green, yellow. Do you want to clap?
No.
Oh.
I just say yes.
Red, green, yellow. So I'm going to use the bottom one just because I'm too short to get a little bit higher. But this says that the requirement of 6, you've currently only 5 people have checked in. Again, real-time view. You don't have this currently using the Windows version. Create the accountability. Guys, you're supposed to check at 6:15, morning and night. How are your sites posted? Green obviously means that we filled the right complement. Get someone off there. So you can click on that site to see who's listed or who's checked in. Okay? What it then does is once we've clicked on Wilburs and Mams and Toti, it then gives us a list of the people that are rostered. This is the example where someone says, haha, I caught you, I left my phone at home. You can say, okay, Muwani, check in, check out, start break, Francina. Okay, so it's just a different button. So then they can go and check these people and they can say to them, okay. So what you might have is some people, the guards might say they don't want to buy an Android phone, or that companies don't want to pay for phones. What a lot of people do nowadays is they have a tablet that the supervisor drives around with, and the supervisor will go and check everyone in. For those that aren't familiar with ERDM or EasyRoster Deployment Manager, remember there are a bunch of rules that will help you to set up. So if someone's got their own phone, you can use actual time. Meaning if you arrive at 6:04, we'll submit a clock for 6:04. If you have someone driving around with one tablet and going to 10 different sites, you can't use actual time because he cannot physically be on every single site at exactly 6 o'clock. Makes sense? Okay. Andre, let's just go to alarms. Sorry, one back, please, if you don't mind. What you can also do on ERDM, for those that don't know, is you can set a number of alarms. So those alarms might be time critical, quantity critical, grade critical. And basically what that would do is send an alert if you haven't met the criteria. So if you have a quantity critical alarm, you're saying the requirement of 2 is of the utmost priority and we need to ensure that we have 2 people on site. If, for example, we had 1 or 3 people, it would then send a quantity critical alarm to us that someone needs to respond to. Again, accountability. They've got everything at their fingertips to ensure that your operational processes are running at an incredible level, for lack of a better term. Okay, let's move on, Andre. Okay, adding an employee to shift. Now this is for a supervisor. As an example, Andre's sick again. It happens once a week here. But Andre's sick again, and he says that he can't come today. So what I do as a supervisor, I want to add a new person. Now this is where us as EasyRoster are trying to help you. When the supervisor adds a new person to the roster or to the attendance, the first screen it's going to show you are your spares. We don't want them to go and just pick anyone, because the supervisor will not factor in that this person's going to get paid overtime. So the first thing we're going to do is say, these are your spares in that area. Pick a spare. The next screen, if they can't find a spare, will then show you all the available personnel. Available personnel means if it's for today's day shift, someone that didn't work night last night and someone that's not working night tonight, so there's never going to be a clash of a 24-hour shift. These are your available people. So again, just trying to change the behavior. Think about your bottom line, and we're going to help you. Okay.
So on an employee, he won't be able to do what we call an ad hoc clocking. It has to be done by the supervisor. Ad hoc means he's not scheduled to work, he's filling in like in dysfunctions, but would the employee be able to do ad hoc, or only supervisor and nobody else?
The employee can do an ad hoc one, correct me if I'm wrong, the employee can do an ad hoc one, the supervisor would need to approve it before it gets added to the attendance.
If he's not rostered to work, if the guy's not rostered to work and he checks in, the check-in won't happen immediately. A notification will go to the supervisor will have to approve it, in which case the check-in will go in, and if he declines it, he won't be able to check in.
Get you, thanks.
Okay. Once the supervisor's selected the person that they'd like to add to the attendance, you'll notice that there's a phone, a WhatsApp, and a text. They will then be able to contact this person from the app. So they can make a phone call to that person, given that that's the phone number that's loaded against their profile. They can send them a WhatsApp, which will automatically open WhatsApp, or a text message. Next screen, please. Still no clapping, Andrew. Thank you. Okay, this is just to show you what that view looks like for the supervisor if they obviously want to clock people in. So as we discussed, you've got check in, check out, and the break in the middle.
Just the added function there, Daniel. So what the screen also means is once you've added it, it will become part of that list. So you'll see now that Mr. Nkosi is now part of that. So when he arrives, then the supervisor will sign him on duty, and you'll see the button will then turn clear. So he's physically on site.
Okay.
I've got it.
I need to give you the mic, please, ma'am.
What happens in case of when an officer decides now he wants to work on that site, but he's not clocking himself, but he works anyway, and he puts in a pay query? What happens in such a situation?
No, I've got the mic.
Oh, no, do you want to speak?
I was saying,
No.
no clock, no pay.
Yeah. So look, it's more of that is more of an internal process that needs to be managed rather than an application. But my idea is, again, you're trying to change the behavior. You're trying to improve your bottom line. There's a lot of cost savings that come with a mobile app, like printers and ink and petrol and all that kind of stuff. Something like that with the guards, you need to fit in. These are the new processes. No clock, no pay. Is that what you've implemented?
I threaten, but I don't. I've got a heart.
So don't do that. Lindsay,
Yeah, can I ask for questions? Just raise your hand so that I can see.
your back's turned to
Thank you, Ruth. The special one.
What happened in a case where, say for instance, it's a distant site and the guard can go on his own to the site and the supervisor is not close? Will he be able to override that if the supervisor is not there to authorize it?
I'm just trying to make sure I'm understanding the question. So would the guard have a cell phone?
Yeah, he will have
So he can. Yeah, so it's self-posting. He'd clock in himself using his own.
over and above. Say for instance, you are not rostered to work or you are coming in.
Oh, but the supervisor can't add you.
Yes.
Ideally, what would then need to happen is that the attendance would need to be captured on the EasyRoster web application itself, rather than purely relying on the mobile app.
I think alternatively, you can give the control room the supervisor's powers. Then if the guy reports there that he's on site and they phone him, they're sure he's there, then they can approve as a supervisor. But there is no one on the road who can go to the site. It can also work.
So that's a really good idea. I mean, you could actually give the control room the ability to be a supervisor, so that they could sit in the control room, they could have access to all sites. So if a supervisor isn't able to do that, they can contact the control room, who can then load them, and then they could go and check in. Great idea.
They'll do that on the web version without having to have the mobile app.
Either or, yeah.
But the point is, we can't just have people checking in. It needs to be approved by someone. Oh, gosh.
Gesha, be kind, please.
Sorry, just a quick one. I wanted to ask if the alerts, they come through the app, but do they also come through as a pop-up in the web application? Because that is where, like you say, the control room would have the control to do everything.
Yeah, so in EasyRoster Deployment Manager, so now on the web version, when we go into the web version, I'll show you. There's now Deployment Manager built into the solution rather than a separate login, and the alarms are listed in Deployment Manager. So if an alarm does go off, it would give you the numbers 1, 2, 3, or however many are currently going off. There's no massive sirens, if that's what you're asking for, but it does show you. Okay, we've discussed the offline mode. Now, again, offline mode is massive because, like I said, the person can submit a clock, whether they got signal or not, whether they got data or not. In speaking to some of the customers, what they've said is they also want the ability to ensure that there is actually signal. And what that would require is data at all times. So as Adapt IT, not only as EasyRoster, but in partnership with one of our other business units, they can help you to ensure that your guards have connectivity at all times. This, however, is not something that gets charged to the guard. It's reverse billing to the customer, right? So what that means is at the end of the month, based on the data that's been used, you'll be billed. It's important to mention that this data will not give access to YouTube or Netflix. It's only to the EasyRoster mobile app. If you look at the number of clocks and the size of a clock, you're looking at approximately R1 per meg. And what we've done in our test is 26 clocks in a month don't even get to a meg. Okay, it's a really small amount of data. So those bills that will be sent to you aren't huge numbers. That, again, is to help you to ensure that there is never really an excuse for your guard to say that they couldn't clock in. Whether it's offline mode, whether it's using Adapt IT's data, the opportunities are endless.
Not a set amount, it varies.
It's based, so it's, Francina's question is not a set amount, it varies. It's based on the usage.
My, my current service provider is giving me a set amount.
So whether you...
Whether we use it, well, it's a set amount. It doesn't high, it doesn't low. It is a set amount every month being billed to us for built-in data.
Okay, let's have that conversation.
Cool.
On the zero-rated APN option, which is this is it. So on the SIM card, you'll be paying for a bundle, okay, with data attached to that. So it's zero-rated APN. So you'll have, say, 1,000 cards. There'll be a pool of data, and you'll pay that amount every month. If, for some reason, this month gets really busy, you go over that, they'll just adjust that. But potentially, if we work it out right, you should be able to pay only one amount. We just need to do the calculation up front when it comes to that pool of data.
Can we choose not to be charged for it?
Yeah.
So because at the end of the day, some of us have already the device there with the SIM and the data monthly, and then to have that on top wouldn't make sense.
Yeah, so we're just giving you options.
Okay.
So what we're saying is you can use purely offline mode, you can use your own data, you can do it the way that works best for you, but we're just showing you that if you are concerned about the offline mode, which to be very honest you shouldn't be, everyone will eventually have signal, but if you want a real-time live view for the remote sites, you would need connectivity or data, then we have a solution for you.
And for that you need to purchase a SIM, because he mentioned a SIM.
It's a conversation that can be had. What we'd need to do is look at your existing infrastructure. So you wouldn't need to purchase a SIM. What it does is each guard has a SIM card. So if he doesn't have data, we connect to their network provider and ensure that they have signal, even though their phone says they have no data.
Okay.
Makes sense.
I think the point about the offline mode is that as soon as a guy, have you spoken about this? When a guy gets into a Wi-Fi area, for example, it'll download all the messages that were saved during offline mode.
Yeah. So as soon as they have signal or get into a Wi-Fi area, it will then submit all the clocks. But offline mode means that they can store that, we will store that clock on that device until they get signal, and then we'll push it through to EasyRoster. So if the guy does get signal tomorrow, that clock for yesterday will only be submitted that next day.
Okay, so I do have a question on that. So when it eventually uploads to the system, what times is it going to be working? Because personally, I'm looking at it in this way, the benefit of the mobile app. I would like to set it up in a way that if someone probably reports late for duty, let's say it's supposed to be there at 8 and is there at 7, that hour is going to come back to me. I'm saving because he was late. Okay, so now he comes there at 9 instead of 8, and he does not have data, and then that information gets to the system the following day. Which time is it going to use?
As the very second that you get signal.
So on my side, the phone is still on. There's still a clock on the phone. Okay, so even though it's off, it will take the actual time. We just update the system once there's network.
Yeah, the issue is with us, we run a daily report, and if they clock offline, obviously they would not be on site. Where I like the idea about the SIM card and adding data to it. I like that very much because currently we're struggling with employees, Limpopo, for example, where there's no signal, that book offline, and then you start screaming and shouting while you're not on duty, but I am. So I really like that. I would like to talk more about it.
Okay. Yeah, so again, we're just giving you the options.
Yeah.
So it's important to mention, and I was just talking to you about it, Francina, but what it does is every single phone that a guard has will have a SIM card. That previous slide that I showed you, what that'll do is it'll automatically connect to the network provider that they use, so whatever that SIM card is. Again, it won't go to the guard. The cost will not go to the guard. They will not be able to access other applications. It will only be available to the EasyRoster application. At the end of the month, the business will be sent an invoice. Okay, that ensures, Nyoni, to answer your question, that every single thing is live. It's up to date. So everything you're looking at is a current view. You're not waiting for any clocks to be processed elsewhere.
Much better, eh?
Yeah, I think it's going to be much better that way, because I'm sure the other reason would want to use the mobile app, we've had some sites, let's say it's only night shift site, there is no day shift. So if that guy is supposed to go to the site and he's not there, sometimes would go for the whole night and there is no one who's there, and then the following day the client is cancelling. Of which I believe by using this now, if he's not there, somewhere in the control room they're going to see, or they're going to get a siren that, oh, this org hasn't reported on duty, so do something about it.
Yeah.
So I think we are going to have to look at the option that's going to allow those guys always have data, so that if they are not there, then we know that they're not there. Than that, you know about it the following day when they get to a Wi-Fi place and stuff like that.
You might even opt to go a hybrid model where you have 500 guards as an example, but you might look at it going, we only really need connectivity for 200 of them. The other 300 we're happy to do on offline mode, but these 200 SIMs are the ones that we want to buy data for. So I'm just talking about from a data perspective. Your license, when we discuss the pricing, your license is going to be priced according to the same model as you've always been priced for EasyRoster, in brackets, 1 to 100, 101 to 200, and so it goes. But I'm just talking from a data perspective. It's not to say that you've got 500 phones, all 500 phones have to be charged. No. Okay. All right. So for those that saw the window, that I'm sure you've all seen the Windows version that Albert developed. This is what's happened since Albert left. It's thank you. I did hear one clap. So for those that haven't been at the user conference, I just want to touch on the cloud version. The cloud version, brand new technology, looks a lot better, capable of doing a lot more. Remember, we host this for you. So we get calls on a weekly basis. We've lost our data. Please, can you restore? We don't manage your data. If you've lost your data, unfortunately, your data's gone. Whereas we manage this for you, we manage those costs. It's not something that you have to do anymore. So the principle about the roster screen remains the exact same. We've just improved the views, and we're trying to just improve the entire process more than anything. So currently on the Windows version, what you'd have to do is you'd create a roster, and then there are 108 reports, and you pick the 5 that you run, and you'd run those reports. Whereas now on the cloud version, when we looked at the roster screen, or the views as we call them, we decided to improve not only the look and feel, but the functionality behind it as well. So as an example, here's our, Andre, if you don't mind clicking on the funnel in the top right-hand corner, the 3 lines, just turn show shift details off at the bottom, please. Bottom right, yeah. Okay. So this is what our roster screen looks like currently. Same thing with the colors, green, white, yellow on top. If you hover over the shield next to the number 1 at the top, under in the colors, yeah. So there it tells us our grades, what was required and what we rostered. So we've now got a real-time view on whether or not we're meeting the grade requirement. Move to the face next to that, please, Andre. We can then also see the gender requirement. So instead of having to run, yes, the reports are still there. We're not saying don't look at reports. But again, create accountability. The people that are now using or doing the rosters have access to everything right in front of them instead of having to rely on reports. Andre, if you scroll all the way to the right-hand side here on the dates, please, the blue, yeah. See those red squares? Those are overtime shifts. in the past, you've had to run a report. You've then seen site Adapt IT Joburg campus has got 48 hours. You've then had to go back to the roster and find out who are the people that have overtime. Whereas now we're telling you, just be aware, you're sending out shifts that are already going to be charged overtime, or paid as overtime. Okay? If you hover over that, we can tell you what that overtime is going to cost you. If you go all the way to the left, there's a little $ next to each person's name, Andre. Let's see what Neville's getting paid here, Andre. Yeah. No. There, that $. So there we can see exactly what that person's going to get paid. So again, it's improving not only the functionality, but also your processes. It makes your lives a lot easier. These blue numbers that you see there, that's 7. That's non-productive time. Does everyone know what non-productive time is? Okay. So again, guys, yes, the reports are still there. It's not that we've said get rid of reports. But we're now saying to you, if you're looking at this, excuse my honesty, but be better. Like, everything's there to help you. Yeah, I'm going to get to that now. Okay. What we've also done is, if you look at a key performance index or a cost comparison report, we've shown you what your contract value is, what your wage cost is, and whether or not you've hit your target wage to revenue. Now what we do is we show you on each and every single roster. So if we were to add another shift here, Andre, under Sarel, let's make Sarel work night shift again tomorrow. Yeah. So let's post him as a night shift, and you'll see how those numbers change. So just for Francina didn't have the mic, and it's an important comment. Francina's exact words were lacquer. So, okay, so again, when I say be better, it's literally saying, guys, everything's at your fingertips. From a profitability perspective, you have the tool here that can really help you to ensure that you increase your bottom line. That's the most important. It's all good and well that everything's green. Does green mean that you're making money? No, it doesn't. It just means that the number of bodies required to be on site every single day, you've met that. But it doesn't mean you've made a profit.
How many licenses? How many people can access this platform? Is it limited to licenses?
So same as the Windows platform, we do not charge per user. We charge based on the number of active personnel, personnel being guards in as an example. It's the exact same. There is an increase in cost for the cloud version for the right reasons. Like we said, we now host it. We manage your backups. If you think of the cost savings, I need 3 hours.
And our admin would be able to add users and functionalities and limits and all that.
Functionality remains the same, just new and improved. Picture Albert, Windows version, Daniel, cloud version.
Well, I need a few questions about report writing and assets and all that, but I'll take it offline.
So I'm glad, I'm going to jump to it. So you're talking about report writing. Now, for those that don't know, on the Windows version, about 2 years ago, we created a BI dashboard. Now, what the thinking behind the BI dashboard was we'd spoken to a lot of our customers who said they would take 3 or 4 EasyRoster reports, they'd export them to Excel, and then they consolidate them themselves. So we looked at a BI dashboard and we said, you tell us what reports you want us to consolidate for you, and we'll create this. Part of our roadmap, and we're going to accelerate that kind of soon, are operational dashboards, where we want our customers to tell us what they require in the form of a dashboard, whether it's a graph, a pie chart, you name it, what data you'd like to use, and that's how we're going to develop operational dashboards. After operational dashboards comes customer dashboards. So your customers might require access to certain information, that they want to see a graph showing how many people arrived on which day at what time. Mm-hmm. And you can give that information to your customers. Obviously, sensitive information won't be shared, but you can choose what you show to your customers. JC, we're moving. Albert's version, like, we had to stop. Ruth, please, no.
I'm very intrigued with the overtime that you've shown. Was that per shift, or is that after, say, for instance, the 208 is completed, or is that per shift?
So, Andre, if you don't mind, can you go back to that roster screen, top left? The hamburger menu, top left? Oh, there we go. Okay. So what that does is it looks at the wage rule for that person. So as an example, this person might have a wage rule that says that he gets paid overtime after 208 hours in a month. So if you go all the way to the right, you'll see that only the first 2 hours in this shift are paid as overtime. But 12 there and 12 there. Because if you think about it, he's going to be working 200, those 2 overtime hours might be his 209th and 210th hour of the month, and then it's 12 hours for the next shift. And remember, that's looking at the roster. So what we're saying is, and think about this openly, we're saying you planning to spend an extra 0.5 per shift. Now, when you say that out loud, you're going, why would we want to plan for that? It's costing us money. Here's someone, where's that? Oh, yes. So if we here's someone with non-productive time as an example. I don't have to go run a report to see who has non-productive time. It's telling me that someone on the same site has non-productive time. Take away one shift from that person, give it to that person, and we lower our overtime and our non-productive time.
So that is only for schedule, not for actual? Say for
Both. So the question was, that's only for schedule, not actual. It's for both.
Okay.
Look, when you think about it, when you say actual, remember, if you look at the attendance and there's overtime shifts there, unfortunately for you, there's not much you can do about it. The person's worked that shift. It's not like you can go back and change it. So that's where we're putting the focus here to say plan better. There's no reason as to why we should send out a roster where we're seeing that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 overtime shifts.
Yeah, and I think the other advantage with this is, especially if you go to the non-productive hours, you can see that you give someone a roster, it's 21 days, okay, fine, but probably that person has got 4 Sundays. Yeah. We normally pay Sundays separately. Yes, yeah. So if you are looking at it, you can just go and remove 2 Sundays, you give them to someone else, then the non-productive hours will go away and everything balances out. So this thing is basically the thing.
So, Nyoni, that's a great point. And just to introduce you to the rest of the crowd, but Nyoni is one of our first cloud version users. So I know we had the launch event 2 years ago. Initially didn't go according to plan. Nyoni stuck with us and has helped us to get this solution as to where we needed it to be. So is that currently what you're doing? I mean, when you look at a view like this, I would imagine in the past you would have been using reports, then going back to rosters, whereas now it's making your life a lot simpler. Neville, Mike, please. We need everyone to hear that.
And even when I'm here, I can just check on my tablet and I can sort my things out. So it's basically good. That's the thing. It helps. Because we are looking at it at a glance, we can just see whatever is happening and you can just sort it out right away as you are making the rosters. So it's like you're saying, it's not a matter of just seeing, is it green, 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 okay, fine, shifts covered, but how are they covered? There is a guy that's going to work 21 shifts, but he has got 5 Sundays. And now he has got non-productive hours. Okay, the other guy has got 18 and he has got 36 non-productive hours, and you still need to pay for those 36 hours to reach the basic. So you can just balance it out as you are making there. It's basically a no-brainer. You can just sort it out there.
Yeah, and from a time, we'll clap for you. From a time perspective, again, those reports that we've still added them to the system, they're fantastic. We'll always be the biggest punters for those reports. But in saying that, it does become time consuming. You know, a KPI in your business with a larger database might take 3-4 minutes to run. And then you have to go back to the roster and you have to see, okay, where were those 48 hours of overtime? Whereas now, it's hitting you in the face. So again, I keep on using the word accountability. Whoever's responsible for the rosters, accountability. You shouldn't be you're planning for overtime. That doesn't make sense. If it's my organization, that little 0.5 makes a massive difference at the end of the day. Don't send that out.
Just a quick one of this online version. The moment you make changes, is it automatically onto the employee's, let's call it app? Because my current service provider, to talk the talk, but I don't really see it. So if I change the shift to a leave, automatically when they open the app and they're online, they would be able to see it.
Okay.
I don't have to upload.
We'll prove it to you.
I'm just asking.
Can you go into my office and get the tablet? I think it's on my desk. It's in a white box. I'm not going to damage the demo, but I'm going to show you.
Daniel?
Neville, yes, Dave.
What's the revenue that you've gotten there?
Dave, sorry, just speak into the mic, please. Yeah, there.
That waste revenue
Yes.
that you have on there,
Yes.
is that actual and forecast for the month?
No, so this looks at, if you look top left, it's just looking at the roster. So
Up to your actuals?
No. So what we're looking at here is just the period from 1 July to end of July. So we're saying for that cycle, our wage to revenue forecasted for that month is going to be the, can't really see, 55.91.
Okay. But is that on the actual as well? So that as the month will progress, it will change?
Yes. To answer your question, we're going to show you the attendance screen now. Maybe we should get you data. What was that? So there, Dave, to answer your question. So you can see here, based on, it gives you the targets and the projected. So based on the fact that we've had an absent shift and a -1 and a -1, it's now giving you projected for the rest of the period. It's not up until that date, so it wouldn't make sense to give it to you up until that date, because if it's day 1 of your cycle, you're going to see 0.8%. So we're going to give you a projected, meaning based on what has happened and what's forecasted to happen, this is what's projected, correct? Any other questions before we do a live demo? Okay, so now we're going to show you. Andre's got his phone plugged in. So Andre is an employee. And like we said, he's going to enter his cell phone number, his personnel number, 1978. Oof. Okay, so Andre has now been SMS'd his validation code, types that in, and bang. So it picks up, like we showed you in that presentation, just to show you that it is real. This thing does exist. It picks up Andre's shift. Andre can now take a photo. Smile. Check in. And now we're looking at the attendance screen for Adapt IT Joburg campus. Yeah, we'll go through the shift. So if we look down at the bottom here, we can see that these are Andre's rostered shifts. So again, there's no excuse for the person to say, I didn't know when I was working, where, what time. He's got access to his roster. Just think about the number of rosters that you guys have to print out, put up on site, give to each and every single person. It's now going, they're now going to have access to that. Paper, ink, fuel.
You say it's geofence, so when they take the picture, did it also record your location, and how can you view that?
Just dreading that question. So what we've done with the photo for the time being in the first release is changing the guard's behavior. Albert, sorry, do you have your hand up?
I don't think we should talk about it.
Okay, so in future releases, there's going to be a report that shows you photos, and we're looking at facial detection and all that kind of stuff going forward. For now, it's a behavioral thing.
Another question?
Andre, just...
Hi, I'm just saying, wouldn't it be nice that on...
Sorry, is that mic on? I don't think the mic's on, Neville.
Can you hear me now?
No. Here we go.
I was just saying that wouldn't it be nice that on the very same site when they are clocking, if there's a vehicle there, they can add their kilometers, starting kilometer for the shift, and when they knock off, they can somehow add the ending kilometers. If there's firearms and everything, they can add their permit numbers and everything. So in the morning when we do reports, or when the reports come, it's all about the actuals, the kilometers and everything at once.
Great point. So EasyRoster for the past 28 years has been built on client requirements. So that we appreciate. Please send us a request for that. I'm not saying yes or no to it, but it's definitely something we need to consider. If it's something that our customers want, then it's something we definitely going to look at. Currently, not yet, to answer your question.
But I think what I would like to do, especially considering...
No, that mic's going off. I think it's flat.
Okay. I wanted to say what I'd like to do, especially with the app, considering that the person would have to take a photo, because in any case, EasyRoster has got that option for me when I'm adding my people to take their photos as well. So I would like it when it gets to a point where maybe the supervisor needs to approve, because I'm thinking now, let's say I don't want to go to work and then I give my friend my phone to say, okay, pass by my site. He is within the location and then he wants to book me on duty. Then he takes a photo. Then the photo that's going to appear obviously is his photo, not mine. So the supervisor probably sitting in the control room can also just check the picture that I would have captured already that is on EasyRoster and compare it with the one that the person would have taken and see, oh, is it the same person or not? I would like to do that with the system.
That's just the next version of the evolution. Yeah, so that's exactly what we're going to do, but I think we're going to go one step further, where it's not facial recognition. It is, so what we do is we take the algorithm of your face. So what's the measurement from your nose to your forehead, nose to the chin, and we'll base it on that. So it's resource less intensive as well compared to a photo, and that's the way we're going to recognize it. So and you don't need a separate supervisor then, because once you go through the motion of signing yourself in, it will recognize the face based on that algorithm and then sign you in. There's no verification needed. But that's the evolution of the product. It's not available right now.
So the question is, what if you have an identical twin and the answer is all the best?
These measurements won't be the same.
Yeah. So we've moved away from this. So Andre did submit a clock, and you'll see there that the clock has been submitted on Wednesday the 2nd. Andre, if you just hover over that day shift for me, please, on the attendance. On the attendance here, the actual web application. No, today's shift, please. So it picks up the time. Okay, but now I'm going to go through the deployment manager rules so you guys can see that it's not to say that it needs to pay that way. We can set it up based on your requirements. So, Andre, before we move on to the app, please, right on top right-hand corner next to your name is a cog. Next to your name, app. There we go. Go branch, and just scroll that to the right, please. Yeah. Click on deployment manager. So when setting up deployment manager, there are a couple of things that we look at. So there, geofence, I would imagine all of you would want. Otherwise, the guy can lie in his bed and he can clock in. All right? Just from go down. Some of the rules as an example, if someone checks in early, do you want to use actual time or scheduled time? Okay, so I'd hope it's scheduled time, because the guy could get there 10 minutes early just by chance, clocks in, and then he gets paid for those 10 minutes. I wouldn't imagine that you'd want that. Same if someone checks out late, do you want to use actual time or scheduled time? So what we've done based on our rules is why it's posted the 10:50 is because we want actual time. So if we had to set it as scheduled time as an example, it would then say that it's 6 to 6, even though Andre's clocked in at 10:50. You can say that we can subtract time for people after certain periods. So if someone checks in later than 15 minutes after the start time, we're going to start deducting time from them. So it's leeway, as an example. What that's typically used for is people with biometric devices, wall-mounted devices. You have 20 people coming to site all trying to clock in at 6, so they're giving that leeway. If it's me with a mobile app, 0. Again, change the behavior. You start deducting 1 or 2 minutes from someone's timesheet, and that guy's going to start arriving 10, 15 minutes early for every single shift. Okay, so I'm not going to spend too much on the rules, but just understand that we do sit with you beforehand saying, guys, we want to automate as much as possible. So tell us, if this, then what, basically? If this was to happen, if this is when they clock in, how do you want it to be processed? Okay, going back to the mobile app, we can look at the attendance. So Andre now on his employee app, he clicks on attendance. It shows him exactly which shifts he's worked. So there it says on the 1st of the 7th, he worked 8 hours, and it gives him his totals. So he's already got a view as to what he's going to get paid. So that brain starts ticking when it comes to a pay query. He's already seeing all his totals. Okay? We can then submit a pay query. It automatically picks up Andre's personnel number and the site, And only because of the fact that he's only worked the one shift, it says on that date you worked a day shift. What is your comment? And he can write whatever he feels is necessary. Once he submits this, as I mentioned, gets sent to the EasyRoster administrator, not the supervisor. Okay. Apply for leave. Picks up his available balance. That's quite high, Andre. Asks what period you'd like to apply for leave, what his reason is. Same process, gets sent to the EasyRoster administrator, who can then approve or decline that request. Yeah.
So this, can you hear me? Yeah. So this leave approval thing, once the leave is, let's say the guy asked for leave from the 7th until the 18th. If it's approved, the roster will automatically change. Yeah? But what will also need to happen is whoever's supposed to replace him during that period will have to be done manually. Okay? But his roster will change based on the approval. That's not a Daniel thing.
Albert took the Windows version comments personally. Okay, and these are the push notifications that we showed you on the slideshow. Francine, I've got a tablet here. I'll show you. We're going to add a shift for me, and I'll show you how the app changes, and then just to answer your question. Yeah, supervisor app. Let's go through that. Okay, so Andres, we've lost connection to your phone.
It's just so you can't see my login details.
Okay, so here Andre's sites, the Adapt IT Joburg campus, control room, Joburg Spares and West Mall. Again, same colors. So Andre as a supervisor seems to be failing horribly. Only one of his sites is green. Spares doesn't really bug us. We've got one too many people at the control room, and the Adapt IT Joburg campus is short. Do you see the sun, then the sunrise, and then the night? You can filter. So by ticking, just as an example, turn off the afternoon as well, please, Andre. Now, by only selecting the sun, we're saying, only show me my day shift. Okay, so there's my day shift. I can see I've actually done pretty well as a day shift. If I go and only look at my night shift, it then shows me a completely different view. If we tick all three of them, it's saying for the calendar date, what is your posting summary? Okay, so now we've opened, sorry, did you open a site there?
Yeah, that's correctly posted.
Okay, so here's a site that's correctly posted. You can see that button that's in white. That's because a check-in has already been processed. If that button was still in blue, it means that you now have the ability to check in or check out this person, depending on what button it is. Yeah, go there, control room. Okay, so there we can see that Daniel Brits, what do you know, he's not at work. So we could go to Daniel Brits and click on the check-in button, and the supervisor would then have the ability to check Daniel in for that shift. Okay, or check out. Yeah, so same process. You should, let me just get through this. You can then take a photo and then check in. It's the same process on both the employee and the supervisor side. You can add staff. So like we said, it's important to mention we're trying to drive good behaviors. So what we're saying to you is we're going to give you a list of your spares, your excess spares site linked to that area. Here are your list of your spares that are rostered to work today. If you can't find a spare, then we're going to show you available people. Now, it's not to say, please go and find, and that's what, let's be honest, that's what supervisors and ops managers do. They go and look at that existing roster, who's off for today, let's go post that person, even though that person's already worked 28 shifts. At the end of the day, the people that are responsible for bottom line have no say on the fact that that shift's going to be paid as overtime. Okay, so Neville, thanks.
I just wanted to find out if we're going to have something in place. Let's say someone was working day shift and they're supposed to knock off at 6, and they forget to knock off, are we going to have something to notify us that, okay, it's been an hour now, this guy hasn't knocked off duty? Or maybe if he happens to walk out of the geofence, are we going to get some kind of notification, or how is it going to happen?
Depends on the requirement. We'll sort it out later.
Yeah, something we can look at. So to answer your question, the geofence is something we can look at. If someone forgets to check out, that functionality is already built into EasyRoster. As soon as they check into their next shift, it automatically clocks them off at the scheduled end time of the previous shift.
Yeah, that's the one thing. The other thing is if it goes 24 hours past when he was supposed to log off, it'll check him out automatically for that shift within 24 hours, right? That already happens on Deployment Manager. But if you want current reports on who should have checked out and who hasn't, we'll have to develop that a bit later.
Yeah, I think we're going to appreciate that, because there are some other guys that are going to, let's say he does not get a reliever and then he decides to desert the post. And then he just leaves and then he goes. And we don't get any kind of notification. We're going to be in big problems.
So just to add to that, so as soon as someone leaves the geofenced area, you, number one, want to be notified. And would you want that shift time to be submitted as a checkout time automatically? Okay.
But you will receive an alert. So based on some information, you will have a real-time alert coming through to the supervisor if you're underposted or overposted. Okay.
Yeah. The alerts are underposted and overposted. We're just talking about leaving the geofenced area. Okay.
Okay, so there are multiple ways that this can be used. So for companies that don't want all their guards to have a phone or want to pay for all of their phones, they're going to have a supervisor who's responsible for 200 people or 20 people or whatever, right? So it's not necessarily so that you're going to know that the guy's left the geofenced area, because he's not going to have his phone anyway. The supervisor's going to have the phone, right? So you're not going to be able to sort it out that way. But the supervisor is going to have to be responsible to make sure that the guy is there. However, it might be a site that's far away and there's no supervisor there and the guy doesn't have a phone or he doesn't have a signal. So if he doesn't have a signal, you're not going to know that he's left the geofenced area anyway, right? So there are all sorts of issues involved. Daniel?
Thank you. Okay. Let's show some exceptions, Andre. So, yeah, the staff is just the supervisor having access to all their staff, so they can go, click on staff. Let's go to Regan, and we can see Regan's details. So we have a list of all the people linked to our area. So I can again call Regan, WhatsApp Regan, or text message him. I can go and check his shifts. I can check his attendance. I can check his timesheet. I can log a pay query or a leave request on his behalf as the supervisor. Again, I can't approve it, but I can log it on their behalf. Okay. Staff exceptions. For the current period, I can go, I've got a list of all my exceptions. Whether that's going to help you to monitor trends or your bad people, what it will do is give you a list per person, how many of which exception type do they have, how many absent, how many late, how many sick, how many, all of that kind of stuff. So there we can see, there's Neville. He's had one absent this cycle. When was Neville absent? And we got a full list here. There's Zuki, so we can see everything. Again, this is on the supervisor app. Okay, and those are just his people. And then any notifications, push notifications that have come through to the supervisor.
Finally, the sign-up.
Okay, yeah, let's clock out. So Andre's just going to log in again. He's going to clock out for his shift today. 1923, I think it was. Okay, so again, the exact same process. Andre will need to take a picture before the checkout functionality becomes available. Just for anyone on the live stream, if there are any questions, if you could please capture them in the comments column on the YouTube page. We'll get to those questions shortly. Okay, if we go to the attendance, we can there see now that Andre clocked out for today. That immediately updates the attendance screen on EasyRoster. So again, this person's monitoring their hours. And like I said, if you all of a sudden say that you're going to get paid for actual hours, and Andre leaves 5 minutes early, and instead of getting paid for 8 hours, he gets paid for 7.98 hours, you're going to see behavior changes very quickly. Okay, again, for us, it's optimizing bottom line. We're changing processes that are going to help you to ensure that you, like Albert's always said to us in a demo, at the end of the day, make a profit on every single site. Something like this is definitely going to help you. Anything else? Okay, guys, from our side, that's our mobile app. We're very proud of it. We're very excited about the release of it. We will be letting you guys know as soon as it is available. We're right at the end, a few minor tweaks, but this is something that, like I said, we're proud of. Going forward, we've discussed just very briefly where our thinking is. All-in-one solution, dashboards, you name it. We want to get to that point where we are your one-stop shop, not only from a people perspective, that you can pick their brains on any industry-related queries, but also as a tool. That this tool, ultimately, at the end of the day, drives your entire organization. Now, okay, any questions? I think we're going to open it to the floor here initially. Okay. Do you have questions there?
Yeah, there's a suggestion.
Okay, let me read that.
Okay. I've answered most of them, but there's one more.
Okay, so we're just going to go through the questions on YouTube. Louis Creer, I would suggest that the facility to overpost a site should be a non-negotiable, so that you shouldn't have access to overpost a site. Okay, it's a good point. Rampul Tarun. Good morning, this is Tarun from WS Insights. I would like to confirm whether it's mandatory for all guards to have a smartphone in order to clock in and out. Yes. So to answer that question, it is available, or is going to be available on Android and iOS. It's not only an Android application. It is going to work in offline mode on both of those, both Android and iOS, but it needs to be a smartphone. Okay, I think it's... Yes, so it's not that everybody needs to have it. I mean, obviously a supervisor can have a tablet or have a phone and clock everyone in, but if a guard wants to use the application, it needs to be a smartphone. Tino, I like the leave application part and the fact that it works offline, caters for load shedding as well. Louis again, apologies, no intro. What controls would be in place to ensure that the data suppliers, MTN, do not pass any increase they wish? Louis, that's a conversation that needs to be had offline. I'll contact Louis and just set up some time between Louis and Marco and I, but we'll discuss that with you, Louis. Good morning, Corbus from Alert Patrol. Nick Zolani, how does the app handle areas with poor network connectivity? So as we've discussed, if it is in offline mode, it will store the clock as soon as they get into an area with signal Wi-Fi. It will process the clock in EasyRoster. If the other option is to ensure that you have connectivity, but I'm not sure if Nick's in South Africa currently. Okay, so we'd need to look at that for Nick. Let me see here. What if a supervisor clocks in a guard and the employee did as well? So that functionality shouldn't exist. If the employee is already clocked in, the supervisor shouldn't be able to clock the person in. Yes, and on the supervisor screen we showed you that the block will go white. That means that that person's already clocked in, so you won't have the ability to clock that person in again. Hi, will there be a recording of this meeting? Yes, this recording will stay on YouTube. So anyone that needs to have access to this, you can search the EasyRoster mobile app launch, and it will be available. Patricia from TSS, can you clarify how posting sheets will work and if the system will still integrate with Profile Corp? Also with the hours, Linda, you've got a big heart here that's covering, I don't know, I can't read. If you can just repeat that question, please? Right at
The last one. I also can't see we past the heart. Can you clarify how posting sheets will work and if the system will still integrate with Profile Corp? Also, will the hours export procedure remain the same?
So to answer that question, the exporting of hours procedural process will remain the exact same. We export to multiple different payroll systems. Currently on the cloud version, not as many as we have on the Windows version, but we are developing that integration on a regular basis. The other question was? Oh, the need for posting sheets. So if the way I look at it is, if you have a posting sheet typically sits in a control room or in a supervisor's car, and they will then go and complete the posting sheet to say, these are the people that were rostered. Were they there, yes or no, tick, and an OB number. With this mobile app, is there a need for posting sheets? I don't think so. Okay? Definitely not, in fact, because I'm not now relying on controllers. Because remember, controller phones, are you on site? Yes, I'm on site. Are you really on site? You know, so now the mobile app, it's geofence. I don't need posting sheets. You're changing the process where you're saying to your guards, exactly as Francina said, no clock in, no pay. This is what determines what you get paid. And if you don't clock in, if you can't clock in, your phone died, make sure that the supervisor clocks in for you. So there's no real need for posting sheets there. Any other questions on YouTube, Lindri? Sorry?
They're sending us WhatsApp, but I think we did answer this. Confirm
I'd like to confirm whether it's mandatory for all guards to have a smartphone. No.
Okay, that's it.
Okay, open to the floor for any questions or comments. I'm going to move this way around. Thanks, Kesha.
What is the oldest Android version that can handle this app? So what's the lowest? 11, 10, 9? Oh, yeah, you have it.
So the answer to that question is 2018 and above. Anything from the year 2018 and app will work. What version of Android is that? Do you know, Andre? Not too sure. I'll confirm that with you, but we know the year was the last release of 2018. Okay. There were more questions. Yes.
Yes, what I need to know is that usually at the airport we have flight delays. So how will it help us for the delays for 6 to 7 hours for clocking out?
So, sorry, just explain. So,
they are working 8 hours shift. So if the Air France plane delays for 2 to 4 hours, then their clocking out must be 8 hours. So if they continue working, will it help us to add the hours, or what will happen?
yes, so based on those deployment manager rules, you can say that anyone that checks out late would need to use actual time. So as much as his shift might be for 8 hours, as an example, because they clock out 3 hours later, we're going to pay that extra 3 hours. So would they still get paid for 8 hours in that example, or would they get paid for 11? They get paid for 11. So then we'll just make sure that we use actual time to pay for those hours. Ruth? No, it's for the live stream.
I'm just want to find out about the leave. Is that only for annual leave, or does that include sick and unpaid leave? What? So the sick will show how much leave they got due, or?
No. So the leave balances only apply to annual leave, but they can apply for any leave that's marked as an existing shift type within your branch. So if you go file options branch shifts, whatever leave types are ticked there, they'll have access to those. Ooh, now you're testing me. Do you mind passing that down, please?
Okay, I have two questions. First one, let's say I don't have a smartphone. Can I use my colleague's phone to log in with my details? And then the second one, can it be the manager who's approving the leave? Let's say the guards uploaded the leave on the mobile app, And then can it be the manager who's approving the leave instead of the administrator? Thank you.
So to answer your second question first, because it's the only one I remember, ideally not. The leave can only be approved by someone that has access to EasyRoster. I don't think your supervisors, as an example, will have access to EasyRoster, so it would need to be an EasyRoster user that approves that. You might now look at it going, okay, then we want to give our supervisors access to EasyRoster. I'm not sure, but you cannot approve leave from the app. Can you use your friend's phone to clock in? Remember, when you try and sign in, it's going to SMS a validation code to your number. So we're not going to allow for buddy clocking, and that's why we're doing that. We don't want you to use other people's phones to clock in. Driving behavioral changes, that's the big thing. Your supervisor can check you in, but you're not going to use Chomiaga's phone.
Yeah, plus I think the other thing, if you allow those supervisors to approve leave, because remember, if it's approved, you need to go and add someone in manually there on the roster. Yeah. So they can approve, and then the size will be left not covered, and then you have problems.
Good point, Yoni. Yes. If you don't mind, just right behind you.
Morning. I just had one question regarding the pay query. Is it possible for the app to actually send the feedback to the security staff once they submitted the pay query?
The notifications that get sent to the employee app will then tell you whether or not your pay query has been accepted or rejected. So they will get a notification to say whether or not it was successful.
Can I send the feedback?
I'm not sure. Is there feedback once they accept? I think so, and if not, we'll make sure there is. It's a comment column where they can say why. Yeah, so they'll say why not, as an example, in a comment block. That comes as part of that notification.
I would like to know that I'm sure a few of you guys have been subject to a National Bargaining Council inspection, and one of the questions raised is there needs to be some form of acknowledgement if we do use the app that the employee accepts his roster because of the hours they worked and because of the days, 5 on 5 day, 5 night, 5 off, exceeds the BCA limit, and they have to accept that roster. Is there a possibility to build it in? Or am I the only one concerned with that?
Please send us that request. So it's the first time we hear of it. Well, that I hear of it at least.
It was raised on our...
Okay, send it to us. So like I said, for the last 28 years, as you know, the system's been built based on what you guys need. So send it to us, please.
I would like to know, can you send reports like absenteeism? Because we usually send it monthly to our HR. Can we send it? Is it on the mobile app?
So it's not in the mobile app, but there are reports on the web version that can be pulled to show you all of those numbers. Is the personal exceptions report on the web version? So it's on your Windows version and in the cloud version. It's a personal exceptions report that can be pulled.
I was outside. I don't know if I'm still online, but what I want to ask is that pattern overtime in 4 months, where we consolidate. At the moment, we take in the pay summaries for 4 months, consolidate them, and see if I owe a person or not. So in this version now, will I be able to pull one report to say, in this 4 months, this is what I owe you, or in this 4 months, this is what you owe me?
Are you talking about the BI dashboard?
Yeah, the overtime averaging report is already available on the Windows version. It's been there for a while. And I think it might have been developed in the cloud version already, I'm not sure. But if it's not there now, it will be there soon. Okay, but it is on the Windows version.
Just contact support to arrange an upgrade for you.
Just out of interest, who's gone the route of averaging hours over 3 or 4 months? Not many, eh? Okay, that's very interesting. The averaging of hours you've been doing for years. Yeah, so the feedback that we've gotten is the majority of our customers have needed to go that route. That if you had to pay overtime on a monthly basis, it works out to be too expensive, whereas now the agreement with the guards is that they average overtime over 3 or 4 months. And if you work a 4-on-2 off or a 6-on-3 off pattern, over those 3 or 4 months, there is no overtime that will need to be paid. So it's a massive saving for our customers.
Morning. So just a quick question from the HR side. Let's say any officer on the site, for whatever reason, is facing disciplinary. Is there a way that EasyRoster, the admin, can block him from checking in on site? So suspending him.
So it's a really good question. I would imagine it would need to be based on the shift type that's rostered for that day. If you suspend him, we should say that that person shouldn't be able to clock in.
What we should do is have a look at people that have been excluded from a site and not allow them to check in on a site. We don't do it now, but we can do it. Maybe just send us a requirement.
Okay. Anyone else? You all ready to write the test? Guys, thank you very much for coming out. Much appreciated. Again, I speak on behalf of the entire team how excited we are, not only about the mobile app, but the next few years. We've got a lot planned, and we know that you guys are willing to go on that journey with you, with us at least, and we thank you for that. But thank you for making the effort to come out. Lindri ordered enough food for 3,000 people. So please, help yourself. There's coffees, waters, more snacks outside, I think. I think they should still be there. Yeah, if you don't mind, just before anyone gets up, we just want to take a group photo from maybe that angle, just for our use. But thank you, everyone. Have a good one.
Stand on top of the...
Yeah, guys, work your way Wait, just wait.